Hello there everybody, Sam's Trains here and welcome back to the railway and back to yet another review. This time it's a slightly older model, which is the Hornby Q1, and this one's in BR Black, which has been weathered, and it's a really nice model, and I've shown it to you a few times in the running days, but I thought now it was time to do a review. So the Q1 was initially introduced during World War II in 1942 to the design of Oliver Bulleid. A total of 40 were produced and they proved to be highly effective and immensely powerful, but they were noticeably very ugly locomotives called the Ugly Ducklings. And I do suppose they are pretty ugly looking, but they do have a very sort of gritty air about them, and I always see them as sort of workhorses. And they were really built for austerity purposes, of course. And of the original 40 locomotives built, there is unfortunately only one left, which is running number C1, which quite interestingly was the first of the class ever to be produced. And here's the model, and as you can see this is in the BR livery, which means it's modelled slightly later on because, you know, if it had been modelled earlier on it would have had the southern tender instead. But as you can see this one is number 33009, which is the BR running number, and it's a beautiful 060 locomotive. But first let's take a look at the box. The end of the box, sadly there's nothing on there because the seller didn't include the sleeve. For whatever reason, I don't have the sleeve for it. But on the back of the box we have got quite a lot of information. First of all, Q1 class, and there's no power rating or anything there, but we know it was pretty powerful. In the middle there you've got quite a lot of information, which is great. You know, we love to get all this information, and feel free to pause the video to read it if you'd like to. And on the far side, on your right, there's a very gritty looking image of one of them at work. As you can see, she's not doing a lot of work. She's only got like just a brake van, a guard's van on the back there. I don't know, but still a really nice illustration there. And well, I suppose it's time that we got the loco out of the box. So let's take this outer sleeving off, shall we? There we go. And because we've not got a sleeve in there, of course you can see the locomotive immediately. But still, there's a lot of glare at the moment, so let's not waste any time getting her out of the box. There we go. And the first thing we'll look at is this. What's this? This is the locomotive operating and maintenance instructions, and it's quite nicely printed. You know, you've got a whole lot of information. Quite nice that they've included how to replace the motor, but they've got nothing about DCCing the loco, which they normally do have instructions. But this one is already chipped. This one's got a Bachmann decoder in it from the previous owner, but I don't know. No information on that, but still very strange. So let's take out the detail pack, and it's a very interesting detail pack, this one is. I haven't fitted anything of it, of course, but you've got sort of lamps, which you don't normally get. You've got those white discs, and I forget what they're for exactly, but there's something to do with the route, I think. You've also got an M coupling there, if you'd like to fit it. Presumably that's for the front. And you've got various interesting pieces of detail here, which is very nice. But still, let's take a look at the locomotive itself. And as you can see, it's beautifully weathered, factory weathered, I believe. I don't think it's weathered like this by the previous owner. But still, let's get them out then. And they're not plugged in together. The loco is separate from the tender. But let's start the tender first. Ugh. Horrible. This old style packaging is not very nice for getting things out of. And I won't be putting this tender back in there for a while, that's for sure. But as you can see, nicely weathered. We'll look at her in a bit more detail, if we can call it a her. It's more of a tender, isn't it? But we'll look at that in a little more detail in a second anyway. But that's the tender. Now for the difficult part, let's get the loco out. And it has got the holes in the back, as you can see, but it really doesn't make things a lot easier. Come on now. Got it. Almost. There we go. Ugh, that put up such a fight. Goodness gracious. There you go anyway. There's the loco. Lovely 060. And as you can see, you've got a little bit of motion going on here as well, which we'll see later. But yep, a lovely loco. Let's take it up onto the white background and take a look in a little bit more detail. So there she is then, up close and personal, Hornby's Q1. And no, you know, she's not beautiful looking, is she? But I do really think she's got a real presence about her. And in some kind of way, she does look pretty smart, doesn't she? And I do particularly like this weathered version because, as I said, you know, they're workhorses. They're not really designed to look pretty. And so I think this weathering really helps to add that idea of, you know, the real sort of gritty working locomotive. And the pristine version does look very nice, don't get me wrong, but I just think it's a lot more true to life, isn't it, with the weathering. And you know, the loco itself is pretty good. You know, it's built to pretty high standards, let's be honest. It is a little bit delicate, and most locomotives are, but the point is it's not too fragile. And you can handle it, and you know, there's areas here where there's no pipework or no detail where you can hold on to the loco and lift it up and whatnot. But having said that, there are still a lot of separately fitted parts, most noticeably the pipework. On this side you can see there's lots of pipes just underneath this, well, on the side of the boiler really, I suppose, all the plumbing and whatnot. But around the other side especially there's quite a little bit more, as you can see. And around the front of the loco is pretty good, especially you know, around the smokebox door. There's a lot of detail, moulded and separately fitted onto there. And there's ladders at the front, as well as a pre-fitted vacuum pipe. And it looks like a chain link coupling on the front as well there. And the whole thing is really well riveted as well, especially on the roof of the cab and along the sides of the body. Looks fantastic. And the wheel set has been very nicely weathered, and as you can see it features those lovely bullied wheels. And you know, the weathering there really does look fantastic, doesn't it? You know, considering this is a factory weathered model, the weathering really does look very professional and very realistic, doesn't it? Especially around the linkage and the wheel set. And you've also, as I mentioned earlier, you've got this little bit of motion here. I'm not entirely sure what it's for. I'm not really into the technicals side of it, but it does look quite smart when it's running, as you'll see a little bit later on. Separately fitted parts then, carrying on, we've got copper safety valves and a copper whistle, as you can see there. And there's quite a few fittings underneath the boiler and smoke box as well, as you can see there, which I don't think are moulded on. I think they are separately fitted. But you know, the actual chassis of the loco, as you can see, is really well detailed. There's loads of rivets and moulded parts on there, which is fantastic. And the loco itself really is quite true to life. You know, if you look at some pictures, it does really look like them. Inside the cab we have got painted cab detail. It's not massively intricate, but it is quite nicely done. You can clearly see the regulator, and also the gauges and dials and whatnot are all intricately painted. My example doesn't have any glazed windows on the sides here. I don't know if it's supposed to or not, but on the rear facing windows it does have them, which is quite interesting. I'm not too sure whether that's a defect or not. But you know, no glazed windows on this example anyway. Let's take a quick look at the side of the cab then. As you can see, it's really nicely weathered. You've got 5FA, I'm not too sure what that is. Is that route availability again? Possibly, but you've got the running number there, which is 33009. And a really smart looking loco. Let's move on to the tender, which again is very simple, but the paintwork especially is really nicely done. If we take a closer look at the British Railways crest, you can see that it's been really nicely applied. And the whole bodywork looks really smart with the weathering. It does look extremely realistic, especially on the undercarriage. The undercarriage is not massively detailed, but there are quite a few rivets, and you know, there's a lot of moulded detail there. But the weathering really does bring it to life and make it look a lot more realistic than it would do without it. The coal is pretty good. It's not too fine, but it's not glossy or anything, and it does look very realistic, which is great for a, you know, a railways model, which is supposed to be high detailed. There are a lot of separately fitted parts on the tender too, especially ladders. There's quite a lot of ladders, 2 around the front and 1 on the back there, which is just hanging loosely. But you have got sprung buffers, by the way, on both the front and the back of the loco. I'll show you on the back this time. There you go. And them couplings, of course, which can be removed. So generally a really lovely looking locomotive, really smart. I really do think Hornby have captured here, you know, as I say, the grittiness of them really. And they're used to making lovely, beautiful looking locos, aren't they, Hornby? But this is really an exception, and I think that makes it really unique, in fact. So yeah, a really smart loco, and it's been built to a high standard as well. It's not too fragile, and you know, you don't find yourself breaking it too much. So let's take her down onto the tracks then and see how she runs, shall we? And there's the Q1 sitting on the tracks, looking absolutely fantastic. And I'll just show you what else I'm going to run. On the other track, I've got one of the Light Pacifics. This is a Merchant Navy class, in fact. It is also in the BR version of the loco, but of course, natively, the Merchant Navy class was from the Southern Railway, and she's pulling quite a heavy rig of 7 passenger coaches. So we've got a bit of a mixture of passenger and freight, because the Q1 is going to be pulling some box cars. Firstly, crisp snacks and nuts. 7 of those, and 4 of the prime pork wagons with a brake van on the back. But yeah, let's talk a little bit about the performance of the Q1 then. Now, as I might have alluded to earlier, this loco's got one of the Bachmann decoders inside it, and I can't use it at all on the Hornby Select. But I can use it on Railmaster, but I can't write any CVs, so I'm not sure whether you know, the minimum or maximum speeds have been altered on the loco, but she certainly doesn't go very fast at maximum speed, and also the lowest possible speed really isn't that slow, so perhaps this isn't a truly fair and accurate representation of how the loco runs, but I will, just on on Railmaster, I will just rock her forwards and backwards as slowly as I can, and you'll see hopefully what sort of runner she is. So here we go, just a little bit of running. I can get it slower than that. There we go. She's run away out of shot, but that's about as slow as she'll go. And as you can see, while it isn't perfectly a crawl, you know, it's not a perfectly slow crawl, it is pretty smooth. And the loco is pretty heavy as well. Like I say, it's got a lot of weight to it, which is excellent news, you know, because they were very powerful in real life. So, you know, a lot of weight means she'll pull a lot in model form, and hopefully it means she won't struggle with the wagons. So let's throw her into reverse and couple up to those wagons and see if she'll pull them. There we go. And that looks to me like a successful coupling, so let's get her to tow these off then and see how she does. Whoa, that was very quick. I'm sorry, I didn't mean it to be as quick as that. Slow down a bit. Let's get the Merchant Navy up and running as well then. And she's on good old-fashioned DC, so I'm on the HM2000 with this one. But there she goes, pulling away all those coaches with absolutely no trouble whatsoever. And I wouldn't expect anything less. So yeah, let's go and check them out anyway. Let's watch them run. Good smooth runner as well, the Merchant Navy. That's the Bibby line loco, by the way. Hornby did create quite a range of them, but that's the one that one is. And there's the Q1 at a nice freight speed. Yep, looks good. Alright, so those two are running around very happily, and while they do, I thought I'd share with you some of the scores for the Hornby Q1. First of all, I thought the detail was really, really good, 8 out of 10. It's not over the top, you know, we've seen locos with more detail, but there's certainly more detail than you'd expect from a loco of this sort of age, you know, a few years old. Performance is not bad at all, there's really good weight to her, and the motor seems pretty good, but, you know, she's not too great at slow speeds, and not too great at fast speeds. And while that's probably realistic, I do like a little bit more of a dynamic range of speeds. But having said that, she's a really good puller, so not a bad performer. Character 9 out of 10. As I've already said, I think this loco does have amazing character, and Hornby have really captured the Q1 really nicely. And she really does look like a real workhorse, which is great. Build quality, again, not too fragile. Delicate is fine, but fragile not so much. It's really not too fragile at all. You can handle the loco, no bits break off, and as long as you're careful, it's absolutely fine. Value, 7 out of 10. I paid just over £100 for this loco, which is a little bit steep. I would say £70 would be about the right value for this loco. So if you're on eBay or wherever you go to buy locos, you don't really want to be paying any more than £100 realistically, like I did, because, you know, it's a great loco, but I'm not sure it's quite worth any more than £100. But overall, 8 out of 10, fantastic locomotive, really nice detail and a great addition to the collection. So I'll leave them running and we can watch them for a little bit longer. Well everybody, that'll just about do it then for today's review. I hope you enjoyed seeing the Q1. It is a very, very interesting and certainly a very unique locomotive, so if you did like her or the review, please feel free to leave a like and a comment, because it is lovely to hear from you. Or if you'd really like to, you can check out the Facebook and Twitter pages at facebook.com/samstrains or twitter.com/samstrains. It would be great to see you on there, but for now everybody, a great big thank you for watching as always, and I'll see you very soon. Cheers everybody.